We have massive failures of the leading social media platforms, for instance, not investing in adequate content moderation in smaller languages, many Indian languages or languages like my own, Finnish. But AI is making great strides in translations and our ability really, I would say, bridge some of those divides where we can switch from one language to another and the translation techniques are getting more and more accurate.
Welcome to the Regulating AI podcast. We're at the India AI Impact Summit. I have Anu Bradford with me from Columbia University. Anu, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Anu, you are here at the India AI Impact Summit. We have a global audience. Just tell them a little bit about yourself so that they get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah. So I'm a professor at Columbia Law School in New York. I'm originally from Finland, so I've lived half my life in Europe, half in the United States. And I mainly work on issues like technology regulation. So the regulation on AI in addition to social media and other tech spaces.
Good news for you is our podcast is called Regulating AI.
That's perfect. Then I feel very more delighted to be here.
Absolutely. Anu, you had written this incredible book on digital empires, which argues that there are three sets of, spheres of influence. The US, which is a free market, the Chinese, which is a state-driven, and the Europe, which is a rights-driven. Which model should India not follow? Not follow.
I have reservations about the American market-driven model. It is a techno-optimist, techno-libertarian model. And I think it has generated many benefits. But at the same time, I don't believe we should outsource the governance of technology to the tech companies themselves. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, what can I do today to advance public interest? What can I do for democracy? So ultimately, I think technology regulation needs to be grounded in decisions made by democratically elected governments. So that's my reservation, and that's why I wouldn't guide the Indians towards just embracing free markets. I also think that Indians wouldn't be best advised to be following the Chinese state-driven model. Ultimately, it is a digital authoritarian model where the state is wielding technology for the purpose of state control and censorship and propaganda. And that is also not a model that empowers individuals, that would enhance democracy. So that defaults me much closer to the European rights-driven model as the one that I think India would be best following.
So then let me just follow up that conversation. The European model is the rights-driven model, as you said. There have been a lot of conversations happening from the former Prime Minister of Italy and a lot of entrepreneurs who have said that regulation is driving European companies outside Europe. So what do you say to a country like India, which is trying to figure out, innovation versus regulation? We'll get into that dichotomy. But Europe is trying to figure out. We had Brando Benefi, he's one of the architects of, so he was on my panel and then he was here on the podcast too. And I keep telling him, either there's a communication issue or what is the issue about European companies leaving?
So I share the concern of Europe's competitiveness. I think the Europeans need to be known for not just regulating technologies, but producing these technologies. But we need to understand why there has been a problem with the Europeans generating the same level of technological innovations as the United States. And the problem is not the rights-driven model. The problem is not that the Europeans care about digital rights. So what is really explaining this innovation gap that we are observing between the US and the EU is that there is no digital single market in Europe. We have a fragmented market consisting of 27 different jurisdictions. They have different languages, they have different cultural priorities that affect consumer demand for technologies, but also different regulatory regimes. So it's harder for European tech companies to scale in Europe. The second thing is capital. There is no capital markets union. You can't raise money from that kind of deep pool of capital that would be integrated across the EU. A third is that there are very punitive bankruptcy laws in Europe. So it really punishes failure. If you try to do very hard things and innovate at the edge of the technological frontier, you sometimes fail, but then you need to be given the second chance. And the fourth, and this is extremely important, America has been spectacularly successful in attracting global talent, including a lot of talented Indian engineers, to innovate for the benefit of the US. And that's what the Europeans should be doing as well and try to replicate that model. So if we understand that the European problem in competitiveness is its failure to build these other fundamental pillars of a thriving tech ecosystem, we can also better understand that there's not this kind of false choice between innovation and regulation. It is not digital regulation that is holding European competitiveness down. So I would urge countries like India to look favorably in European digital regulation that protects individual rights, that safeguards democracy, but then maybe replicate some of the American successes when it comes to how capital markets operate, how you can integrate the markets, how you design your bankruptcy regimes, and how you become the hub for global talent.
So, following on, I mean, one point you kind of made is I'm from Washington, D.C. In the US, we actually celebrate failure. VCs look for people who had failure because they would have learned from that.
Exactly.
And that's something you said doesn't happen. So you're saying India should probably look at a hybrid kind of a model, take the best of the US and take the best of Europe. Anu, you coined the incredible phrase, the Brussels effect, which basically, let me have you explain to our audience who might not be as aware, because we have policy leaders who listen, we have entrepreneurs who listen globally. So tell them what did you mean by Brussels effect, because it's taken a life of.
Yeah. So the Brussels effect is a term that I use to capture this European Union's global regulatory influence that is often unilateral. So the EU is one of the largest and wealthiest consumer markets in the world, and there are very few companies that can afford not to trade in the EU. So as the price for accessing the European market, they need to follow European regulations, including this vast array of digital regulations. But then often it is in these companies' interest to apply the European rule across their global conduct or their global production because they want to avoid the cost of complying with multiple different regulatory regimes. So they often then standardize around the most demanding, significant set of rules because that gives them access everywhere. So that has given the Europeans the kind of global status as a regulatory hegemon, if you like, simply by regulating their own market.
So you have said that India has the scale to kind of build its own kind of a regulatory framework. Do you think there is an opportunity to have a Delhi effect or a Mumbai effect across the board?
Yeah. So India is just incredible country. There's so much talent here. And I think India has shown a real leadership in also crafting policy. There's something, for instance, that I think can become a real Delhi effect or Mumbai effect. And if we think about the digital public infrastructure and the strides that India has made to offer something that I think the rest of the world could benefit from, they could replicate and they could strive towards. So in many ways, I think India is a country that is not confined to just replicating what others do. They may be very independently choosing, I want to have that aspect of the European model, but then I'm going to have an Indian application of that model, make some adjustment that better serves the needs of Indian people, that better serves the structure of the Indian economy. And then there are some instances, including that, look, with the DPI, we are the leading model, and that's something that we embrace and that we export.
So use the DPI model to doing that. Anu, I was in Davos where Mark Carney talked about the middle powers coming together. Do you think that is an opportunity in AI for the middle powers from a policy governance to come together? I'm just taking what he said, just taking it forward on the AI side, the global south or the middle powers or Europe, etc. What do you think of that?
So I think it is a absolutely central way to now think about global governance. We've unfortunately reached the point where I doubt we have a truly we have truly universal way that we can govern AI. There's too many superpower tensions between US and China. The United States is pulling away from its global leadership. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the world needs to replicate that model, that we all now try to unilaterally then figure out how we govern AI. AI needs collaboration. AI needs countries to reach across borders, because AI doesn't respect borders, not the harms, not the benefits, so that we can ensure that the benefits of AI will diffuse across jurisdictions, but also that we coordinate to control those harms. So India is a vast country. It may not like to be seen as a middle power. The European Union may sometimes think that they shouldn't be the middle power, but in many ways, I think we can, if we had a more, I would say, capacious notion of a middle power, and we can think about the European Union, we can think about the UK, we can think about
Canada.
India, Canada, Japan,
Australia.
Korea, Australia. There are a lot of countries that collectively represent a big share of the global GDP, a big share of innovations, and that can benefit. Brazil, I would add. There are many countries, South Africa. You start expanding this concept, and there's a group of countries that are significant and that can collectively convene and try to come up with frameworks on governing AI, but also try to think about how we all make sure that we collectively thrive in this AI era. So I'm a big proponent in finding these coalitions of the willing, and I think the concept of middle power was a helpful way to launch that conversation as well.
Maybe we'll use a different term than middle power. As you said, some people don't. Let's just call it a coalition of willing, as you said. Anu, you're from Finland, and I've talked to a lot of Finnish entrepreneurs. The AI is drawn from data on the internet, which is primarily 70% English-based, Western culture-based. Finland, from what I understand, has many old dialects, languages. When you come to India, you will see there's so many languages, dialects, and you go to Africa, etc. Is there a danger of AI kind of making these countries, cultures, languages be forgotten in the base? When a 7-year, 8-year-old is looking at this and looking at AI, they don't look at this as AI. ChatGPT is not AI. This is for 8-year, 10-year, 12-year. It's a way of life for them.
Yeah.
What is your thought on that?
So I am hopeful that many ways these different languages that have been harder to govern, if you think about social media and content moderation, we have massive failures of the leading social media platforms, for instance, not investing in adequate content moderation in smaller languages, many Indian languages or languages like my own, Finnish. But AI is making great strides in translations, and our ability really, I would say, bridge some of those divides where we can switch from one language to another, and the translation techniques are getting more and more accurate to great extent thanks to AI. But that's why I always also follow what is happening, not just when we develop these large language models, but when we have tailored models that really work well with the data sets that come from smaller languages. So I think that is important. We don't need to just all operate in one language. I think it is an important cultural aspect that we celebrate the diversity of the languages as well. And I hope that we can also develop AI as a tool to allow us to communicate despite embracing also our investment and cultural affinity with those languages.
So you're pretty optimistic that will bring, because language brings people together.
Yeah, language brings people together. And I think it is really important. Obviously, one thing that I want to say, though, that when people say, now you don't need to learn languages anymore because you can just use AI and you can just use your Google Translate, or then you can have the simultaneous conversations with some of your Apple phones, and you have your AirPods and you're able to just have the speech translated. Yes, it's very functional, but if I look back, some of the most amazing experiences that I have gained is when I made the investments to live in another country, to learn another language, where I also learn it by investing in learning the culture. And you always become more connected to that country. And I think your connections are deeper when you still make those investments. So I don't think AI should be, again, substituting the human capabilities. It should help us bridge some divides. None of us will master hundreds of languages, but it is not a reason not to study and learn languages, because investment in language is also an investment in the culture.
Anu, the big thing in the past few weeks has been OpenClaw, which I presume you've been following up. This network of agents that's kind of grown on its own. Talking about agentic AI and AI agents, what are your thoughts in terms of governance, regulation, policy? Are you concerned? What are your thoughts on that?
So I am both, again, optimistic, but also concerned. I think ungoverned AI is a concern. And there are certain uses or settings in which I think agents can be very safely used to enhance our productivity. But even then, they need to be subject to safeguards and governance. But there are many use cases from real life when we start using agentic AI, when the teenagers turn to these AI agents instead of seeing a mental health professional. That is not a healthy way for these teenagers to guide through the troubles that they have. I think there are just too many risks involved, and the consequences are of such magnitude, and that we cannot afford to let these technologies ungoverned. So yes, again, I think we have a little bit more of a need to speed, to try to race, to bring these to the market without then having the patience to make sure that we have high quality agentic AI that is subject to the kind of guardrails that we can be confident that we are harnessing the benefit without then subjecting especially vulnerable populations to the harmful effects as well.
I know there are a lot of world leaders here, as you know, and we talk to a lot of policymakers. So this is your opportunity. If you were to give one final message to the world leaders, what would be that message? Please let them know, because a lot of our podcast is listened to by policymakers. So your camera, your
Yeah.
opinion to them.
Yeah. So this is
And this is the voices of impact.
Yeah. So to me, we all need to understand that there is more than is common that we all have than what divides us. And I think AI can be a tremendous technology to benefit the entire humanity. We need that to make advances in medicine. And that doesn't depend on what your ideological priors are, what your sort of national security priorities are. We need to solve issues like the climate change. So I think we need to focus on where we can really make advances together. And even when we live in the era of geopolitical conflict, and we sometimes feel that we just are too much, I would say, divided in key questions to come together. But even at the height of the Cold War, there were arms control treaties between the Soviets and the United States. So sometimes we just need to elevate the question to the level that what is it something that we all want? Even the United States and China, neither of them wants bad actors to get access to AI that can unleash the kinds of harms and the entire humanity then would suffer from. So we need to think, what are those islands of agreement that we can find, that we can come together? And then where we can't get everybody around the table, who are those who are willing to be part of that coalition of the willing that will make strides in ensuring that we can collectively pursue benefits that will be important for all of us.
Anu, thank you so much for this conversation. I think building coalition of willing, finding areas of working together, I think, and for India to pursue its own path, maybe a hybrid version, those are some of the key points that we take from you. And you feel pretty optimistic about AI and about India's future in AI.
I am, and I'm counting on India continuing with these strides. So to be pro-innovation, but also be really pro for governing AI in the way that benefits India and benefits the broader humanity. So I welcome India's leadership here, and I look forward to then working together with my colleagues from India to continue these conversations, how we can all make this AI revolution to be something that we all can look back in these moments and say, we did everything to steer it to the right direction, and now we are harnessing the benefits.
Wonderful. Anu, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Regulating AI podcast with Sanjay Puri. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought. Share it with someone curious about the future of AI, and join us next time for more stories and insights from the leaders shaping what's ahead. Right here on the Regulating AI podcast.